The Great Hall on Zentari Prime stretched wider than 10 football fields. Crystal walls rose high into the air, catching light from 2 bright suns outside. Hundreds of alien beings filled the space, their strange forms glowing under the perfect lighting. Some looked like giant insects with many arms. Others seemed made of living stone that sparkled like diamonds. A few appeared to be walking plants with leaves that moved like hands. This was the Galactic Federation Council, and today they were talking about Earth. Captain Jake Morrison stood at a small platform in the center of the hall. He wore his best dress uniform, dark blue with silver buttons that caught the light. His face showed no emotion as he looked around at the alien creatures surrounding him. Behind him stood Dr. Lisa Carter, her tablet ready to record everything that happened. She had short brown hair and wore a simple gray suit that looked plain next to all the colorful aliens. Lieutenant Paul Stevens and Sergeant Amy Rodriguez waited near the back wall. They both wore military uniforms and stood straight like good soldiers. Paul had blonde hair cut short while Amy had her black hair pulled back tight. Both of them watched the aliens carefully, ready for anything. At the front of the hall sat the most important aliens. Ambassador Kethvar looked like a huge praying mantis, but with 4 arms instead of 2. His green skin shone under the lights, and his big compound eyes stared at the humans like they were bugs. Next to him sat Ambassador Velthar, who looked like he was made of purple crystal. Light passed through his body and made rainbow patterns on the floor. Elder Morthak took up a lot of space with his plant-like body. His trunk was thick and brown like a tree, but his branches moved like arms. Green leaves rustled when he shifted, and small flowers bloomed and died on his limbs as his mood changed. The meeting had been going on for hours. The aliens had been talking about humans like they were not even in the room. They showed pictures of Earth on huge screens that floated in the air. The images showed storms with winds strong enough to destroy buildings. Volcanoes shot fire and ash into the sky. Earthquakes split the ground open like broken glass. Ambassador Kethvar pointed one of his 4 arms at the screen. "Look at this place they call home," he said in a voice that sounded like metal scraping stone. "Storms that could level our cities, fire mountains that poison the air. The very ground shakes and breaks apart." The other aliens made sounds that might have been laughter. It sounded like wind chimes mixed with grinding gears. Ambassador Velthar's crystal body pulsed with purple light as he spoke. "Their gravity is twice what any civilized world should have," Velthar said. His voice rang like a bell. "The air itself burns with oxygen levels that would kill most of us. Their sun shoots deadly rays that would cook our skin in minutes." Elder Morthak's leaves rustled as he joined in. "And they think this makes them strong," he said in a voice like wind through trees. "They are proud of living in such horrible conditions. How primitive." Jake Morrison's jaw got tight, but he said nothing. Dr. Carter wrote notes on her tablet, her fingers moving fast to record every insult. Lieutenant Stevens and Sergeant Rodriguez exchanged looks, but stayed quiet. They had orders to watch and listen, not to fight. More aliens spoke up from around the Great Hall. A being that looked like a floating jellyfish with too many tentacles waved in the air. "Their technology is crude," it said in a voice like bubbles popping. "Metal ships that burn chemical fuel, weapons that throw small pieces of metal. How backward." Another alien that resembled a walking spider made of silver metal clicked its legs on the crystal floor. "They build everything thick and heavy," it said in a mechanical voice. "No grace, no beauty, just crude strength and ugly design." The insults kept coming. The aliens called humans dirty, violent, and stupid. They said human cities looked like garbage piles. They laughed at human art, human music, and human culture. They acted like humans were animals that had just learned to walk on 2 legs. One alien that looked like a snake made of flowing water rose up tall. "Perhaps we should find work for them in our waste treatment facilities," it hissed. Surely, beings from such a filthy world would not mind cleaning up after their betters. This made the aliens laugh even harder. The sound filled the Great Hall like a storm of broken glass and twisted metal. Jake Morrison's hands made fists at his sides, but still he stayed quiet. Ambassador Kethvar stood up on his 4 legs. He was much taller than any human, and he looked down at Jake Morrison like a giant looking at an ant. "Do not worry, human," he said in a voice full of fake kindness. "We will find some small job for your species, something simple that even primitive minds can handle." The other aliens nodded their agreement. They talked about giving humans jobs cleaning space stations or fixing broken machines. They spoke about putting humans on empty planets where they could not bother anyone important. They planned humanity's future like humans were pets that needed to be taken care of. Elder Morthak's flowers bloomed bright red as he spoke. "They might be useful for dangerous work," he said. "Send them to places too harsh for civilized beings. Let them dig in poisonous soil or work in radioactive areas. Their crude bodies might survive what would kill us." The meeting went on like this for hours. Every few minutes another alien would stand up to say something mean about humans. They compared human ships to garbage cans with engines. They said human soldiers looked like children playing with toys. They laughed at human attempts to explore space. Dr. Carter kept writing, recording every word. Her face stayed calm, but Jake Morrison could see anger in her eyes. Lieutenant Stevens and Sergeant Rodriguez stood like statues, but their muscles were tense and ready. Finally, as the twin suns began to set outside the crystal walls, Ambassador Kethvar walked over to Jake Morrison. The alien towered over the human captain, his compound eyes reflecting the dying light. "Fear not, human," Kethvar said, reaching out with one of his 4 hands to pat Jake's shoulder like he was petting a dog. "We are not cruel. We will find a place for your kind in our great civilization. You will have work to do, even if it is not important work." Jake Morrison looked up at the alien ambassador. For the first time all day he spoke. His voice was quiet but clear, and it carried to every corner of the great hall. "We appreciate your consideration, Ambassador," Jake said with a small smile that did not reach his eyes. "You'll hear from us soon." The alien ambassador pulled his hand back, confused by something in the human's tone. But Jake Morrison was already walking away, followed by Dr. Carter, Lieutenant Stevens, and Sergeant Rodriguez. They left the great hall in silence while the aliens continued to laugh and plan humanity's humble future. None of the aliens noticed the look that passed between the 4 humans as they walked out. None of them saw the cold smile on Jake Morrison's face. None of them understood that they had just made a very big mistake. The humans had listened to every word. They had recorded every insult. And now they were going to show the galaxy what Deathworlders could really do. 3 days after the meeting, the humans asked to speak with the Galactic Federation Council again. This time, Admiral Frank Butler led the group of humans into the Great Crystal Hall. He was older than Captain Morrison, with gray hair and deep lines around his eyes. His uniform had more medals and ribbons than the others. Behind him walked Colonel Maria Santos, a tough-looking woman with dark hair pulled back tight. Commander Nick Taylor came next, a tall man with broad shoulders who moved like a fighter. The aliens were curious about why the humans had come back so soon. Ambassador Kethvar sat in his high chair, his 4 arms folded across his chest. His compound eyes glittered as he watched the humans walk to the center of the hall. "What do you want now, humans?" Kethvar asked in his scratchy voice. "Have you come to accept our generous offer of work?" Admiral Butler stopped at the speaking platform and looked around the hall. Every alien eye was on him. The crystal walls caught his voice and made it echo as he spoke. "Honored members of the Federation," Butler said in a calm, strong voice, "we have listened to what you think about humanity. We have heard your opinions about our world and our people. Now we would like to make you an offer." Elder Morthak's leaves rustled with interest. "An offer? What could primitive beings like you possibly offer us?" Admiral Butler smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. "A test, a challenge if you will. We want to show you what humans can really do." The aliens began to whisper among themselves. Their voices mixed together like strange music. Ambassador Velthar's crystal body pulsed, with bright purple light as he leaned forward. "What sort of test?" Velthar asked, his bell-like voice ringing through the hall. Colonel Santos stepped forward. She was shorter than the Admiral but looked just as dangerous. "A military exercise, she said clearly. Your best soldiers against ours. The hall went completely quiet. No alien spoke or moved for a long moment. Then Ambassador Kethvar began to laugh, a sound like grinding metal. Soon other aliens joined in, filling the air with their strange laughter. You want to fight our military? Kethvar gasped between laughs. Our forces that have kept peace in the galaxy for 1,000 years? Our warriors who have evolved beyond your primitive violence? That's exactly what we want, Commander Taylor said. His voice was deep and serious. Your finest troops against a small group of human soldiers. Elder Morthak's flowers bloomed bright red with amusement. This is the most ridiculous thing I have ever heard. Our military forces are perfect. We have bred out weakness and violence. We fight with honor and intelligence, not crude brutality. Admiral Butler nodded as if he agreed. I'm sure that's true, so you should have no problem beating a few humans, right? The question hung in the air like a challenge. The aliens looked at each other, suddenly less sure of themselves. What are the terms? Asked Ambassador Velthar, his crystal form now pulsing orange instead of purple. Simple, Admiral Butler said. If we win, humanity gets full membership in the Federation. All the rights and privileges that come with it. We get treated as equals, not as workers or servants. And if you lose? Kethvar asked. Admiral Butler's expression grew serious. If we lose, we accept whatever role you decide for us. We'll take the jobs you offered. We'll stay in whatever corner of the galaxy you choose for us. The aliens began talking excitedly among themselves. This was unexpected. They had planned to give humans menial jobs anyway. Now they could make it official and have some entertainment at the same time. Ambassador Kethvar called for order. We accept your challenge, humans. But we choose the terms of this test. What happened next was the biggest planning session in Federation history. The aliens were so confident they would win that they wanted to make the test as hard as possible for the humans. They spent hours deciding which of their forces to use. The Zephyrian Empire offered their Stormwing Battalion. These were soldiers who had been changed by science to be perfect fighters. They could fly with wings that grew from their backs. Energy weapons were built into their bodies. They moved faster than normal beings and could see in the dark. The Crystalline Collective brought forward their Guardian Corps. These warriors were made of living stone that could change shape. If they got hurt, they could fix themselves by rearranging their crystal bodies. They could make their arms into weapons or their skin into armor. The Eternal Gardens provided their Thorn Guard. These plant soldiers could grow back lost limbs in minutes. They could shoot poisonous spores from their bodies or grow sharp thorns as long as swords. They were hard to kill and deadly to fight. Elder Morthak counted on his fingers, which were actually small branches. That gives us 200 of the finest warriors in the galaxy, enhanced beings who represent millions of years of evolution and scientific improvement. How many humans will you field against our forces? Ambassador Kethvar asked with another metal-grinding laugh. Colonel Santos answered without hesitation. 12. The laughter that followed was so loud it shook the crystal walls. 200 alien super soldiers against 12 humans. The aliens thought it was the funniest joke they had ever heard. 12? Velthar gasped, his crystal body flashing bright white with amusement. Just 12 primitive humans against our enhanced warriors? 12 Marines, Admiral Butler corrected, from what we call Force Recon. The aliens had never heard of Force Recon, but they didn't care. The name meant nothing to them. They were too busy laughing and congratulating themselves on the easy victory they were about to win. Commander Taylor pulled out a small device and showed the aliens a picture. This is Staff Sergeant Kevin Brown. He'll lead our squad. The picture showed a man with a scarred face and cold eyes. With him will be Corporals Tony Miller, Chris Johnson, and 9 other Marines. The aliens barely looked at the pictures. To them, all humans looked the same, weak, small, and pathetic. Where will this test take place? Colonel Santos asked. The aliens had already decided. Elder Morthak's leaves rustled with pleasure as he announced their choice. Corridor 4. a jungle world with moderate challenges. The gravity is only slightly higher than most civilized worlds. The wildlife is manageable. The weather is predictable. The humans looked at each other and smiled slightly. Admiral Butler nodded. Carador 4 sounds perfect. Excellent, Ambassador Kethvar said, rubbing his four hands together. Our forces will be ready in one standard week. We will broadcast the entire battle across the Federation so everyone can see how foolish human pride really is. We look forward to it, Admiral Butler said politely. As the humans prepared to leave, Ambassador Velthar called out to them. Tell me, humans, are you not afraid? 200 enhanced warriors against 12 of your kind. Those are terrible odds. Admiral Butler stopped and turned back to face the alien ambassador. His smile was cold and sharp. Ambassador, where we come from, 12 against 200 isn't terrible odds. What are they then? Velthar asked, confused. They're a fair fight, Butler replied. The humans walked out of the hall, leaving the aliens staring after them in confusion. None of the aliens understood what the Admiral meant. They went back to planning their easy victory, confident that in 1 week they would put the arrogant humans in their place forever. But deep in their military databases, a few alien commanders began pulling up information about something called asymmetric warfare. They found old reports about small human conflicts, stories about outnumbered forces winning impossible battles. Most of them dismissed these reports as human lies or exaggerations. After all, how could primitive beings defeat superior numbers and technology? They were about to find out. Carador 4 looked like a nice place for a vacation to the 12 human Marines who stepped off their transport ship. The jungle was thick and green with tall trees that blocked most of the sunlight. Vines hung down like ropes, and colorful flowers grew everywhere. Birds sang in the branches and the air smelled like fresh rain. Staff Sergeant Kevin Brown looked around and grinned. His face had scars from old battles, and his eyes were the color of steel. Boys, this place reminds me of summer camp back in Georgia, he said to his squad. Corporal Tony Miller checked his rifle and laughed. Yeah, Sarge, except summer camp didn't have 200 alien super soldiers trying to kill us. Details, Brown said with a shrug. The Marines spread out and began setting up their base camp in a small clearing. They moved quickly and quietly, each man knowing his job without being told. Corporal Chris Johnson climbed a tree to get a better look around. Private Danny Clark started digging a foxhole. Private Bobby Lee strung up camouflage netting between the trees. The gravity on Carador 4 was 1.2 times Earth normal. The aliens thought this would make the humans slow and clumsy. Instead, the Marines felt like they could jump over buildings. After growing up under Earth's heavy gravity, this felt like being on the moon. The air was thick and humid, but the Marines had trained in swamps in Louisiana and jungles in South America. The alien warriors thought the atmosphere would tire the humans quickly. The Marines just took off their jackets and kept working. 20 miles away, the alien forces were setting up their own camp. 200 of the galaxy's finest warriors had landed with enough equipment to supply a small army. They had energy weapons, force fields, hover vehicles, and communication devices that could reach across the galaxy. The Zephyrian Stormwing Battalion landed first. These flying soldiers looked like giant wasps with energy guns built into their arms. Their wings buzzed as they flew around the landing zone, scouting the area from above. Their leader, Commander Zixtal, was proud of his perfect record. His battalion had never lost a battle. The Crystalline Collective's Guardian Corps came next. These living rock soldiers could change their bodies into any shape they needed. Some made themselves tall and thin to see over the jungle. Others became short and wide like tanks. Their captain, Unit Prime Velkan, had fought in 100 wars without a single defeat. Last came the Thorn Guard from the Eternal Gardens. These plant warriors looked like walking trees with arms like branches and skin like bark. They could grow new limbs if old ones got cut off. They could shoot poison darts from their fingers and create thick vines to trap enemies. Their elder, growth leader Mortan, had been fighting for 300 years. The alien commanders met in a large tent filled with glowing screens and floating displays. They looked at maps of the jungle and planned their attack. Everything was organized and perfect, just like their training said it should be. "The humans have made camp here," Commander Zixtal said, pointing to a spot on the map with one of his 4 arms. "They have no vehicles, no energy shields, no advanced sensors. This will be easy." Unit Prime Velkon's crystal body pulsed with blue light. "My Guardian Corps will attack from the east. We will overwhelm them with superior numbers and firepower." Growth Leader Morton's leaves rustled as he spoke. "My Thorn Guard will circle around from the west. We will trap them between our forces. They cannot escape." The plan was simple and would have worked perfectly against any normal enemy. The aliens would advance in formation, using their superior technology and numbers to crush the humans quickly and cleanly. But the Marines were not normal enemies. That night, while the aliens slept in their comfortable camp, the humans moved through the jungle like ghosts. They had grown up playing hide-and-seek in forests. They had trained to move silently through enemy territory. The jungle of Carador 4 was easier to navigate than the swamps where they had learned to fight. Staff Sergeant Brown led his men to positions around the alien camp. They moved without making a sound, communicating with hand signals they had learned as children. The alien sensors, designed to detect energy weapons and metal vehicles, completely missed 12 men with painted faces and cloth uniforms. Corporal Miller found a good spot on a hill overlooking the alien landing zone. He set up his rifle and looked through the scope. The aliens had put bright lights all around their camp, making themselves easy targets. "Too easy," he whispered to himself. Private Clark crawled to within 50 yards of the alien guards. These Zephyrian soldiers stood 8 feet tall with natural armor and built-in weapons, but they were looking for enemies with advanced technology. They never thought to look for a man covered in mud and leaves lying perfectly still in the bushes. The battle began at sunrise. The alien forces formed up in perfect lines and began marching through the jungle toward the human camp. Commander Zixtal flew overhead, directing his troops with precise military commands. Everything was going according to plan. The first Zephyrian patrol simply disappeared. One moment, 6 alien soldiers were walking through the trees in formation. The next moment, 3 of them were on the ground with bullet holes in their heads. The other 3 never saw where the shots came from. "Contact!" Commander Zixtal buzzed through his radio. "Enemy fire from unknown positions. Maintain formation and advance." But the Marines were already gone. They had fired their shots and moved to new positions before the aliens could react. This was not how civilized warfare was supposed to work. In proper battles, enemies stayed in one place and fought honorably. The Guardian Corps tried to adapt. Unit Prime Velkon ordered his crystal soldiers to change their bodies for better sensing. They grew larger eyes and more sensitive skin. They could detect heat, sound, and movement better than any natural creature. But when they looked for the humans were not there anymore. The Marines knew how to mask their heat signatures with mud and leaves. They knew how to move without disturbing the jungle around them. They had learned these tricks fighting in places where being found meant death. The Thorn Guard attempted to use their natural advantages. Growth Leader Morton ordered his plant warriors to spread out and search every tree and bush. These soldiers could regrow any body part that got damaged, so they thought they could just absorb whatever attacks the humans made. They learned that human bullets did not care if you could regrow lost limbs. Dead was dead, whether you were made of flesh, crystal, or plant matter. By noon, the alien forces were confused and angry. They had lost 30 soldiers and had not seen a single human clearly. Their perfect formations were broken. Their advanced technology was useless against enemies who refused to fight fairly. "Where are they?" Commander Zixtal demanded as he flew over the jungle. His compound eyes could see in all directions, but he saw only trees and shadows. "They are cowards," Unit Prime Velkon said, his crystal body flashing red with anger. "They hide like animals instead of fighting with honor." Growth Leader Morton was the oldest and wisest of the alien commanders. His leaves had turned from green to dark brown as he realized what was happening. "They are not cowards," he said quietly. "They are predators, and we are the prey. By evening, The alien retreat had begun. They had lost 80 of their best soldiers and still had not managed to kill a single human. The Marines had turned the jungle into a maze of death, appearing from nowhere to strike and then vanishing like smoke. The alien commanders called for extraction. Their perfect military machine had been destroyed by 12 primitives with simple weapons and dirty tactics. Staff Sergeant Brown watched the alien ships leave from his position in the trees. His Marines gathered around him, tired but victorious. Not one of them had been seriously hurt. "So," Corporal Miller said, cleaning his rifle, "think they learned anything?" Brown smiled and looked up at the alien ships disappearing into the sky. "Oh, I think they learned plenty. They learned what it means to fight someone who grew up in hell." The broadcast of the battle went out across the galaxy. Every civilized world watched in shock as their greatest warriors were defeated by a handful of humans who fought like the jungle itself had come alive to hunt them. The message was clear. Humanity was not weak or primitive. They were something much more dangerous. They were survivors who had learned to win by any means necessary, and the galaxy would never underestimate them again. The Galactic Federation Council was not happy. News of the defeat on Carador 4 had spread across every civilized world in the galaxy. 200 of their finest warriors had been beaten by 12 humans with simple weapons. The aliens who had laughed at humanity just days before were now demanding answers. Fleet Admiral Zarthok of the Combined Federation Navy slammed his metal fist on the council table. He looked like a giant robot made of silver and gold, with glowing blue eyes, and a voice like thunder. "This is impossible," he roared. "Our ground forces are perfect. They have trained for centuries. They cannot lose to primitive savages." Ambassador Kethvar's forearms waved in the air as he spoke. "The humans cheated. They did not fight with honor. They hid in the jungle like animals instead of meeting our forces in open battle." Elder Morthax's leaves had turned brown with shame. "Perhaps we underestimated them," he said quietly. "Perhaps these Deathworlders are more dangerous than we thought." "Nonsense," Fleet Admiral Zarthok said. His mechanical body sparked with electricity when he got angry. "One battle means nothing. Ground combat is primitive and messy. Space warfare is different. Space warfare is clean and precise. Space warfare requires real skill and advanced technology." The other aliens nodded their agreement. Space combat was the highest form of military art. Ships fought at distances measured in light minutes. Battles were won by superior engineering and tactical planning. There was no room for the dirty tricks that had worked in the jungle. "I will personally command our response," Admiral Zarthok announced. "I will bring 300 of our finest warships. The humans will see what real military power looks like." The alien fleet that assembled in the Nexus system was the most powerful force the galaxy had ever seen. Ships from every member world joined the armada. The Zephyrian Empire contributed sleek vessels that could fly faster than light itself. The Crystalline Collective brought heavy cruisers with energy shields strong enough to stop a star's radiation. The Eternal Gardens provided living ships that could repair themselves and grow new weapons during battle. At the center of the fleet was Admiral Zarthok's flagship, the Eternal Harmony. It was 3 miles long and carried enough firepower to destroy planets. Its computers could calculate the movement of every particle in a solar system. Its weapons could hit targets from 1,000,000 miles away. Against this overwhelming force, humanity sent 3 ships. The ESS Defiance was the largest, a heavy cruiser under the command of Captain Beth Walsh. She was a small woman with gray hair and quiet eyes, but everyone who served under her knew she was as tough as steel. Her ship looked crude compared to the alien vessels. It had thick armor instead of energy shields, missile launchers instead of beam weapons, and a nuclear reactor instead of an antimatter core. The ESS Relentless was smaller and faster, commanded by Commander Joe Parker. He was young for a ship, captain, barely 30 years old, but he had earned his position by being smarter and more aggressive than anyone else in the fleet. His destroyer looked like it had been built for war and nothing else. The ESS Indomitable completed the human force under Commander Lisa Green. Her ship was the newest of the 3, but it still looked primitive by alien standards. Where alien Ships were smooth and elegant. Human ships were blocky and functional. Where alien ships were beautiful, human ships were built to survive. Captain Walsh stood on the bridge of the Defiance and looked at the tactical display. 300 alien ships versus 3 human vessels. The odds were 100 to 1 against them. "Chief," she said to Chief Engineer Dan Phillips, "how are we looking?" Phillips was an old man with grease under his fingernails and a smile on his weathered face. "Engines are running hot and clean, Captain. Weapons are loaded and ready. We're good to go." Tactical Officer Rachel Kim looked up from her station. She was young and smart, with quick hands and sharp eyes. "All enemy ships are in formation, Captain. They're maintaining standard Federation battle spacing." Navigation Officer Sam Clark plotted their course on his computer. He had flown ships through asteroid fields and solar storms. This was just another day at work for him. "Course laid in, Captain. We're ready to move on your order." Dr. Kate Morgan, the ship's medical officer, checked her supplies one more time. She had treated wounds from explosions, radiation burns, and vacuum exposure. She knew this battle would test all her skills. Captain Walsh looked around at her crew. These were people who had grown up on a world that tried to kill them every day. They had learned to fix what was broken, fight when they had to, and never give up no matter how bad things got. "All ships," she said into her radio. "This is Defiance. Let's show them how we do things." The human ships accelerated directly toward the center of the alien formation. This was not normal space combat tactics. Usually, fleets would circle each other at long range, testing defenses and looking for weaknesses. The proper way to fight was with careful planning and measured responses. The humans charged straight in like angry bulls. Admiral Zarthok watched from his command center with mechanical confusion. "What are they doing?" he asked his staff officers. "This is suicide. They cannot possibly survive a direct assault on our formation." The alien fleet opened fire when the human ships came within range. Beams of pure energy and clouds of guided missiles filled the space between the fleets. The alien weapons were precise and powerful, each shot calculated for maximum effect. The human ships flew right through the attack. Their thick armor absorbed hits that would have destroyed alien vessels. When their armor got damaged, damage control teams fixed it with welding torches and metal patches. When their systems got damaged, engineers bypassed the broken parts and kept fighting. The ESS Defiance reached the alien fleet first. Instead of trying to fight all 300 ships at once, Captain Walsh aimed for the gaps between enemy formations. Her ship twisted and turned like a shark among a school of fish, its weapons firing constantly. The alien ships were built for long-range combat. Up close, they could not bring all their weapons to bear. The Defiance's crude missile launchers and kinetic cannons tore through alien hulls that had never been designed to take such punishment. Commander Parker's Relentless lived up to its name. His ship appeared and disappeared throughout the alien fleet like a ghost, hitting targets and moving on before the aliens could respond. Where alien ships were slow and predictable, the Relentless was fast and unpredictable. Commander Green's Indomitable seemed to be everywhere at once. Her ship would appear from one direction to destroy an alien cruiser, then vanish and reappear somewhere else to attack a different target. The aliens could not keep track of where she was or where she would strike next. The battle that was supposed to last minutes stretched on for hours. The human ships were outnumbered 100 to 1. But they fought like their lives depended on winning. Because they did. Admiral Zarthok's mechanical mind could not understand what he was seeing. His fleet was losing. Ships that had never been defeated were burning and broken. Warriors who had trained for centuries were running away from 3 primitive vessels. How? He whispered to himself. How are they doing this? The answer came from Captain Walsh's voice over the radio, broadcast to every ship in both fleets. "You fight wars like they're games with rules," she said. "We fight wars like our children's lives depend on winning." By the end of the battle, the alien fleet was in full retreat. Nearly a third of their ships had been destroyed or damaged beyond repair. The 3 human vessels were battered and scarred, but they were still fighting. Admiral Zarthok stared at his tactical display in disbelief. His perfect fleet had been defeated by 3 ships that should not have been able to hurt them. Everything he knew about warfare had been proven wrong in a single day. As the alien ships limped away from the battlefield, Captain Walsh sat in her damaged command chair and smiled. Around her, her crew worked to repair their ship and tend to their wounded. They had won against impossible odds, just like humans always did. The message was sent across the galaxy. Humanity was not just lucky or clever. They were something the civilized races had forgotten how to be. They were warriors, who would fight until they won or died trying. And that made them the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The great crystal hall on Centauri Prime was completely silent. For the first time in 1,000 years, no one spoke at a Galactic Federation Council meeting. The alien delegates sat in their chairs like statues, staring at the empty space where the human delegation would soon appear. 3 days had passed since the space battle at Nexus System. 3 days since 3 human ships had defeated the mightiest fleet in galactic history. The news had reached every world, every station, every ship in civilized space. The species that had been mocked as primitive Deathworlders had done the impossible twice. Ambassador Kethvar sat hunched in his chair, his forearms folded tight against his body. His compound eyes were dim with shame. He had started this whole mess by laughing at the humans. Now his military forces were destroyed, and his pride was broken. Elder Morthak's leaves had turned completely brown, the ancient plant being looked like he was dying of old age, though he was really dying of embarrassment. His flowers had all fallen off, leaving bare branches that shook with each breath. Ambassador Velthar's crystal body had lost all its color. Usually he glowed with purple or blue light, but now he was clear as glass. Through his transparent form, everyone could see his shame. Fleet Admiral Zarthok had not come to the meeting. His mechanical body was being repaired on a distant world after his flagship had barely escaped the battle. He had sent a message saying he was too damaged to attend, but everyone knew he was too ashamed to face the council. The great doors at the end of the hall opened with a soft whisper. The human delegation walked in, but they looked different now. Before, they had seemed small and weak compared to the mighty aliens. Now they walked with the confidence of people who had proven themselves in battle. Dr. Patricia Stone led the group this time. She was a scientist, not a soldier, but she carried herself like a person who had seen war. Her gray hair was pulled back in a simple style, and she wore a plain black dress that made her look serious and important. Behind her walked Admiral Frank Butler, Colonel Maria Santos, and Captain Beth Walsh. Their uniforms were clean and pressed, but everyone could see the small battle ribbons that had been added since the fighting ended. These were the people who had commanded the victories that shocked the galaxy. Dr. Stone walked to the center of the hall and stopped at the speaking platform. She looked around at all the alien faces, seeing fear where once there had been laughter. The great screens that had shown Earth storms and disasters were now dark and empty. Honored delegates, Dr. Stone began in a clear, calm voice. You asked us to prove our worth to the Federation. We have done so, but I think there has been a misunderstanding about what just happened. She touched a control on her tablet, and the screens around the hall came to life. They showed pictures of worlds from across the galaxy. Beautiful garden planets with perfect weather and peaceful skies, carefully maintained worlds where nothing dangerous ever happened. These are your worlds, Dr. Stone said. Perfect environments where life is easy and safe. Your species evolved in paradise. You had time to think, to create art, to build philosophy. You became civilized because you never had to fight for survival. The screens changed to show Earth. But these were not the disaster pictures the aliens had laughed at before. These showed human cities that had been built to survive earthquakes. Farms that grew food despite floods and droughts. Ships that sailed through storms that would destroy alien vessels. This is our world, Dr. Stone continued. For 4 billion years, Earth has been trying to kill everything that lives on it. Ice ages that froze continents, volcanoes that blocked out the sun, asteroids that wiped out entire species. And through it all, life survived and grew stronger. Ambassador Kethvar found his voice at last. What are you trying to tell us? He asked quietly. Dr. Stone smiled, but it was not a cruel smile. I'm trying to explain why you lost. You created wonderful civilizations despite having easy lives. We created civilization because we had terrible lives. Every human city exists because we refused to let the world kill us. Every human invention came from our need to survive another day. The screen showed human soldiers training in deserts and jungles, in mountains and swamps. They showed rescue workers pulling people from collapsed buildings. They showed doctors treating injuries that would kill most alien species. You evolved to be perfect, Dr. Stone said. We evolved to be survivors. When you met us in battle, you fought like civilized beings with rules and honor. We fought like cornered animals with nothing left to lose. Elder Morthak's dry voice rustled through the hall. Are you saying we are weak? No, Dr. Stone said firmly. You are not weak. You are something much more valuable. You are what we want to become. The aliens looked confused. Admiral Butler stepped forward to explain. Look around this hall, Butler said, his deep voice carrying to every corner. You have built something beautiful here. Species from 100 different worlds working together in peace. You have ended wars, cured diseases, explored the stars. You have created the greatest civilization in galactic history. Colonel Santos joined him at the platform. We humans are good at one thing, surviving. We can fight and win when the odds are impossible. But we have never learned how to build lasting peace. We have never learned how to work together without conflict. Captain Walsh spoke next, her quiet voice somehow filling the great hall. What we did in those battles was not beautiful. It was necessary, but it was not beautiful. What you have built here is beautiful. Dr. Stone touched her tablet again, and the screen showed human children playing in parks on Earth. Human families working together on farms. Human artists creating music and paintings and stories. We don't want to conquer you, she said. We don't want to replace your civilization with our violence. We want to learn from you. We want to be part of something bigger and better than just survival. The hall was quiet for a long moment. Then Ambassador Kethvar stood up on his 4 legs. His compound eyes had regained some of their shine. What do you propose? He asked. Admiral Butler stepped forward. Partnership. You teach us how to be civilized. We help you stay safe from whatever dangers exist in the dark spaces between stars. You have shown us that the galaxy is not as peaceful as we thought, Elder Morthak said, his leaves beginning to show tiny green shoots. There may be threats we have never imagined. Dr. Stone nodded. Every civilization needs both builders and guardians. You are the builders. We would like to be your guardians. The vote was taken that same day. It was unanimous. Humanity was granted full membership in the Galactic Federation, but more than that, they were given a special role. They would be the protectors, the ones who stood watch while civilization grew and flourished. But the aliens had one more request. If you are willing, Ambassador Velthar said, his crystal body beginning to glow with soft blue light. We would ask you to train some of our people, teach us what it means to fight when everything depends on winning. Captain Walsh smiled. We'd be honored to help, but understand, the training won't be easy. We'll have to teach you to think like predators, not prey. We understand, Elder Morthak said, new flowers blooming on his branches. We have learned that sometimes even civilized beings must be ready to fight for what they believe in. As the meeting ended, Dr. Stone stood at the great windows looking out at the twin suns of Zentari Prime. Admiral Butler joined her, both of them watching alien ships moving peacefully through the perfect sky. Think it will work? Butler asked. It has to, Dr. Stone replied. They showed us what we could become. Now we have to show them how to stay alive long enough to get there. Outside the crystal halls, human and alien engineers were already working together. Human soldiers were meeting with alien commanders. Human doctors were sharing knowledge with alien healers. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Never underestimate a species that learned to thrive in hell. But more importantly, never forget that even the most dangerous predators can choose to be protectors instead of destroyers. Humanity had found its place among the stars, not as conquerors or servants, but as the guardians of something worth protecting. And for the first time in their violent history, humans had something better than survival to fight for. They had hope.